And this is also where I promised to tell you about ranked choice voting, which is an innovation that we introduced last year. And we actually had an unfortunate opportunity last year to run a test of this operation. And that was simply because our long-serving U.S. representative, by population we only get one in this state, his name was Don Young. He'd been in the U.S. House since 1972, and he passed away suddenly last year while he was still in office. And there was enough time between his death and the November election that we had to have a special election to fill the vacant seat. And ranked choice voting had passed the year before, so we had to use it for this election. Now, the way this works is somewhat different than most people expect, but you do have a primary like you would in any other election. And in that primary, all candidates run against all other candidates regardless of political affiliation. All voters get the exact same ballot regardless of political affiliation. You vote for one candidate and one candidate only. At the end of the primary, when they tally up all the votes, the top 4 vote getters advance to the general. And this is where it gets a little bit more creative. Now, as a voter, you go into the polling booth and you vote for all 4 candidates, but you vote for them in the order of your preference. So let's say, for example, you really like candidate number 2. Candidate number 2, you think she is the best person for the job and she's going to do exactly what you want. So you vote for her number 1. But if you're realistic, you understand that there's a chance she might not get in. So you say, well, candidate number 1 is 90% of what I want. So you vote for him as your second choice candidate, and so on. And then when the votes are tallied, this is not a simple majority. This is not first past the post wins. This is consensus. You need 50% plus 1 of the votes in order to win. So in the first count, you look at just those first place votes. And if any candidate gets 50% plus 1, we're done. We have a winner. If no candidate reaches that threshold, you take the candidate who got the fewest votes for first place and you kick that candidate out. And then you look at those ballots again and you see what those voters did on their second choice votes. So you run the tally again, and if anybody at that point passes the 50% plus 1 threshold, you have a winner and we're done.
No spoiler effect.
Yeah, you eliminate spoilers and you also shave off the extreme edges of both parties, or all parties really, to be fair.
So less extremism too.
Less extremism. So what we ended up with last year was the primary had over 40 candidates, including Santa Claus. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. There's a gentleman in Alaska. He lives in North Pole, Alaska, of course. And he changed his name illegally to Santa Claus, I think decades ago. And he ran for this open seat. He did not make it into the final 4, however, despite the great name and face recognition. So the 4 candidates who advanced to the primary were Mary Peltola, a Democrat and a native, a man named Nick Begich, who, like the Egan family, the Begich family is a very established political family in Alaska, but Nick Begich ran as a moderate Republican. The next candidate was Al Gross, an independent. And finally, the last candidate in the top 4 was Sarah Palin. And I will just leave it at saying it's Sarah Palin. So those 4 people went into the general. No one in the first count achieved 50% plus 1, but Nick Begich, the moderate Republican, had the fewest votes, so we kicked him out. Now, because he was a moderate, the voters who voted for him almost unanimously voted for Mary Peltola as their second choice, and that put her over 50% plus 1, so she won.
Instead of Palin.
Instead of Palin. Now, she also had to run again in November, so she ran twice last year, and she won in November using the exact same lineup. And as I was saying a moment ago, there's no spoiler candidate, there are no extremist candidates. They pretty much get weeded out in this process. The state of Maine apparently has been doing this for a couple of years already. So there is a model for it, and the constitutional questions have been worked out. California has been doing it, not statewide, but on a municipal basis. Certain municipalities have elected to go for this. And I understand, I do not know the fact of this, but I understand that Oklahoma is actually considering making this voting technique illegal in Oklahoma.
They want their extremists.
Potentially, but it changes the dynamics. It means that you cannot win with a simple plurality of the vote. You must go out and meet the voters and build a consensus to get elected. So it's much harder for candidates, I think, in some cases.
So if we had this, like, it would be less likely for like a Trump win back in 2016.
Under the circumstances, I don't want to get into names too much.
Oh, okay, got it.
But again, extremist candidates would pretty much be weeded out.